What's up, guys? So I'm bringing you a Arc Titan build. It's going to be sort of a Grenadier build using the Heart of Inmost Light. You're going to have absolutely fantastic ad clearing capabilities along with great single target damage. You're going to be getting your abilities back very, very quickly. So if any of that sounds interesting, then make sure to watch till the end. Also, don't forget to use code IMPACT for 10% off all W products. So for your super, it honestly doesn't really matter which one you run. Fist of Havoc is good. It just got a buff with Season of the Deep, so it's honestly pretty solid. But overall, I think Thunder Crash is still a bit better because not only does it do a decent chunk of damage, but it's very quick and easy to pop. And worst comes to worst, you can also use it for a bit of extra mobility and like clear huge distances very fast. So Thunder Crash is overall probably going to be my personal pick for super, but either one works fine here. Then I run Thruster because it has the lowest cooldown, so you can proc your Heart of Inmost Light more often with this ability. Plus, it's also just good for the extra maneuverability. If you want to run one of the barricades, that works fine too. I just recommend Thruster because you can use it more often. Honestly, the jump doesn't really matter. I run Strafe Lift, you run whatever you want. I run Seismic Strike. It's kind of the same thing. It has a low cooldown, same cooldown as Thunderclap, so if Thunderclap is more your style, cool. I like Seismic Strike for the extra bit of mobility and for the blinding that it has as well. That can really save your ass, especially for just what we're going to be talking about later in the build with some of the aspects and fragments here. So then you're going to want to run Pulse Grenade. That's very crucial. None of these other grenades are going to work for this build. You need Pulse Grenades. Then your aspects, you're going to want to run Touch of Thunder and Knockout. Touch of Thunder is just basically going to allow your Pulse Grenade to create ionic traces as it's damaging stuff. So you throw it into a group of enemies. Doesn't even have to kill them. Say it's beefier enemies, which are honestly more or less what you're looking for. When you hit enemies that can take multiple hits from your Pulse Grenade, you're going to be generating a lot of ionic traces. And that's the main thing you're looking for off of Touch of Thunder. Then for Knockout, you're mostly the big thing that I use from this aspect is defeating targets with melee attacks starts health regeneration and makes you amplified. So if you're not already amplified, easy way to get amplified, along with that's honestly one of the biggest ways to heal with this build, because as most arc builds do, this one struggles with healing. So that's a big way to get your health back if you need it, is run into a group of enemies, pop your melee that's probably going to kill any red bar in the game, and amplify you and start your healing. So really great there. Juggernaut is still just not that great in my opinion, so no sense in not running Knockout. Then for your fragments, you're going to want to go ahead and grab Spark of Ions, Spark of Magnitude, Spark of Shock, and Spark of Resistance. Starting from the beginning, Spark of Ions, that's just going to allow you to get extra ionic traces from jolting targets. Spark of Magnitude is just going to increase your Pulse Grenade from, I believe it's 4 pulses to 6, so it's just going to stay on the ground like about a second or two longer, deal some extra damage. Spark of Shock is going to allow your grenade to jolt targets, which of course defeating jolted targets creates an ionic trace from Spark of Ions, so anything that you kill with your grenades is now going to create ionic traces. And then I run Spark of Resistance for the extra damage reduction if you're surrounded. It also gives you the extra strength. But some other good picks here are going to be Spark of Recharge isn't bad. Spark of Amplitude is also pretty good, along with Spark of Beacons. That one's not bad because we are using the Cold Heart for a lot of this build, so that could potentially work great. I've dabbled with it, haven't messed with it too much, so you guys are more than free to play with that and see how good that is. But I do know it's decent, but not great, so keep that in mind. But those are all great alternatives to run if you don't care for the extra damage resistance. And then jumping straight into the actual build, I run a submachine gun with Demolitionist. It honestly doesn't really matter what weapon it is. This is the one that I run. Pretty much any primary ammo weapon with Demolitionist is good to have just in case you find yourself in a situation you can't get your grenade back. That's going to allow you to get your grenade back faster. Just kill a bunch of red bars or whatever. Try to get your grenade energy up. Then I run the Cold Heart. which is going to give you more ionic traces because, as you can see, Longest Winter periodically generates ionic traces while in its high damage state. So if you just hold this beam on, you know, any kind of tankier enemy for like a couple seconds, it's going to enter that high damage state and it will start generating pretty decent amount of ionic traces. So just another way to get ionic traces with this build, on top of the fact that the Cold Heart actually does do a pretty good amount of damage. So I don't think you're gonna feel too lackluster on damage with this thing. It's pretty mean. So that's mostly what we're using that for. And then I just run the Hothead. The Hothead's in almost all of my builds because, I mean, it's a Hothead. Absolutely fantastic legendary rocket launcher. I have one on like all of my characters. This isn't quite a perfect roll, but it's close. Explosive light and impact casing. You don't need this. Pretty much any heavy will work. If you run an arc heavy, it's really nice. So you can run something like if you want to run the half truth's sword or the Terminus Horizon machine gun or whatever. You can even run Grand Overture or Thunderlord if you don't want to run the Cold Heart. But running an arc energy and heavy works pretty good with this build. So jumping over to the helmet, I run Special Ammo Finder and Ashes to Assets. Obviously, you're going to be throwing a lot of grenades for this build. That's kind of the whole point. So it's good to get that super energy back on grenade kills. Special Ammo Finder. I'm mostly using the Cold Heart for this build. I don't really use my other gun that much unless I need to. Same with my Hothead. Not really using that unless it's a really beefy enemy in it that I want to kill fast. So it's good to try to have more Cold Heart ammo. For my gauntlets, I'm just running firepower for those extra orbs of power on grenade kills. I'm running grenade kickstart so that when I get armor charges, I'm going to get grenade energy back just for throwing my grenades, similar to my warlock build that I posted, if you guys have seen that video. Then I'm running impact induction, which is going to give you more grenade cooldown for just killing things with your melee or even damaging them with your melee. So that's what you're going to want that to look like. You don't need to worry about this. This is just from the Artifice armor, just an extra stat roll. And then I run Heart of Inmost Light. I know some people like to run other exotics, kind of like the Armamentarium. That's another good option for this build. It just gives you an extra grenade charge. That one's not bad. Honestly, I prefer Heart of Inmost Light still, just because that Heart of Inmost Light is not only going to give you increased regen for all of your abilities just for using them, it's also going to give you the extra damage. So if you want to get extra damage out of your grenades, all you have to do is hit your thruster, your barricade, whatever you're using, and then toss a grenade. Your grenade will automatically deal more damage, along with a couple seconds of increased regen, on top of the fact that your grenade's now going to deal more damage. So I still feel like Heart of Inmost Light is better because of that extra damage, but it's really your call. Once again, you could use something like the Armamentarium or whatever if you want the extra grenade, but I prefer Heart of Inmost Light. The mods don't really matter. I always run a sniper resist mod and double arc reserves, which is why I said running an arc energy and heavy is good here, because when you run double reserves, obviously that works for both of these weapons. They're both arc, so you're gonna get a bunch of reserve ammo for these weapons. So I prefer to run that. Once again, your call. If you want to run more resist mods to be a little bit tankier, go for it, but I think it's nice having the extra ammo personally. And then for the leg armor, this is a big part of this build here. You're going to want to run double elemental charge. And now you can run one of these, like say you could run one and then run a recuperation, which would be another form of healing for the build. For most activities, I don't really find myself needing much more healing than what I'm already getting from killing things with my melee. But if that's an issue for you, you could swap out one of these elemental charges, throw on a recuperation, and maybe even like an innervation could be a good one, or whatever else. But if you run double elemental charge, you're going to have a pretty damn good chance of getting an armor charge just from collecting an ionic trace. And we're going to be creating a lot of those because our pulse grenade is going to create those both just from damaging enemies and when it kills enemies, along with our Cold Heart is going to be creating them just for shooting enemies, basically. So you're going to be getting a lot of ionic traces, which are going to give you a pretty good amount of armor charges, which are going to feed into that grenade kickstart to give you your grenade back even more just for throwing your grenade. So One of these works great, two of them works phenomenally. Like I said, if you're feeling like you're struggling with survivability, swap it out for recuperation, and then you could even throw on better already. I think honestly recuperation is better. I don't think you need both of those, but just whatever you feel like you want to do if you need a little bit more survivability. But I think double elemental charge is the way to go. And then on your Titan mark, I run double bomber and a distribution. Double bomber, of course, when you use your thruster or your barricade, you're going to get grenade cooldown. Really good, hard to beat it, especially on a grenadier build. And then distribution, that's going to give you all of your ability cooldowns when using your class ability and your targets. If you're using your thruster, 99% of the time you're using it around enemies, and that's just going to reduce everything. So really great to run. Once again, you could probably swap these out for other things if you wanted to. Like you could probably run the proximity ward if you are somebody that does a lot of finishers, or maybe you could run Reaper, so after you use your thruster you get an extra orb of power for more armor charges. You know, it's all personal preference really, but I think this is a really solid setup to run for your mods here. It's what I use, it's what I'm using in the gameplay you see. And yeah, for your actual character stats, of course you're going to want to go max resilience, especially on a Titan. That's your class stat, so that's going to reduce your your class ability, like your thruster or your barricade. So definitely going to want to go max there, especially because you also get the 30% damage reduction. And after that, it's a grenadier build, so of course you're going to want to go max discipline. After that, I would say it honestly doesn't matter too much what you go for. Those are the main two. Recovery is always nice since there's not a whole lot of healing with this build, but it's honestly all personal preference after that. I would say those are the main two stats you want to focus. For the artifact, this is also fairly important for the build here. I run these for champions. Overload trace rifles is good because if you're using the cold heart a lot like me, now you can stun overloaders. So that's solid. I run a melee mod and a arc mod. That gives you those double arc reserves for only one energy. Usually you wouldn't really be able to do that. Just a random void one there. You don't need to worry about that. Then I run amped up to stay amplified longer, and thunderous retort for the extra super damage, electric armor for more damage resistance while you're amplified. Counter charge is good for the extra armor charge when you stun a champion if you're doing activities that have champions. Shock and awe is really, really good because arc final blows while you're amplified, summon a burst of lightning that damages and jolts targets. This works with the cold heart, so all you have to do is be amplified, kill things with the cold heart, and it's going to summon a burst of lightning that will damage and jolt targets all around them. So if you kill one red bar in a group of red bars, a lot of the time that lightning strike will wipe all of them out and jolt all of them, and then you get a bunch of ionic traces because once we kill any jolted target, they spawn an ionic trace from our build. So really, really good. Lightning strikes twice, that's a classic. Pretty much a must-have. It's just going to give you increased recharge on your grenade just for throwing your grenade. So really good. Killing stuff with your grenade or cold heart after you activate this is going to give you more as well. It's going to extend the duration on that to give your grenade back even more, even faster. That's going to wrap up the build, guys. I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you so much for watching. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate everything. Thank you guys so much for 230 billion subscribers. Made me very happy. I'm glad you guys are all enjoying the video, and let me know what you want me to make next. Bye. I still like men.